Hello, I'm Bronna Francis at KVEC. I'm working with the Ripple Effects program, and today I'm going to be talking about tips for supervising kids. This is a PowerPoint that I've had for a while that I used with for my teachers for little trainings, little beginning of the year things. So I just wanted to kind of share it with you because it's 10 simple tips for supervising kids, and I'm here at the holler at KVEC, so we'll get started. The first tip is have a few simple rules, and lots of times we want to have 10 rules or just a list of things to try to hit every point. But the best thing to do is just to have two or three simple rules that just basic things that kids can do, can understand. And the one thing that you want to do is make sure they know what those rules mean. If you say you got to be nice to each other, what does it mean to say to be nice to each other? Um, and you want to have a simple rule that you think covers potential situations like fighting, rough play, foul language. And it's a lot easier to make new rules than it is to enforce them. So if you have rules, you have to enforce them, and you don't want too many that you can't enforce them. But if you look at Harry Wong, his work with the first days of school, you'll see that one of the things that he talks about is your procedures, which is different than your rules. Your procedures would be, how do we walk down the hallway? How do we walk through the lunch line? Those kinds of things. Procedures. How do we come into the classroom? What's the first thing we do in the classroom? Those are just procedures. Those are not rules. So you want to keep that in mind. The second tip is ask, don't demand. You'd be amazed at how cooperative kids can be when you ask them nicely to do something. Asking kids to help, it shows your appreciation when they do, and show your appreciation when they do, and it reinforces the attitude that this is our school and we all want to be proud of our school because it's a place that we come every day and we want to take care of it. When you're in the lunchroom, lots of times teachers will say, pick that up or do this or do that. And I'm not saying always, but sometimes. And it's so much easier if you ask a kid, Caleb, would you care to pick that up? And they say, oh, thank you so much. Those kids really respond to that. It sounds simple. It is simple, but it does work. Don't become known as old yeller. And I know everyone has had teachers or staff that yell at the kids when kids don't respond to your normal voice tone. You take action, but you don't yell. If you do, you'll soon find out that you'll always be yelling to be heard. And when you're yelling, if you do not have good discipline or you don't have your rules enforced or set, what happens when you start yelling? The kids talk louder, and it just becomes a bad situation. Okay. Tip 4, know the difference between tattling and reporting. We have a lot of kids that like to tell everything that every kid does every minute of the day. So, what we have to do is know the importance of the difference between tattling and reporting. A lot of times kids tattle because they need that attention or they want the attention. Students often tattle to make themselves look good in at another student's expense. Tattlers want to hook up into picking them as the winner, in some type of conflict, and the other child has to be the loser. Okay, don't get hooked into that. If a tattler brings a problem to you, don't attempt to solve it. Instead, smile and ask, so what are we going to do about that? So that is and we're going to go on to continue this tip. Now, reporting, on the other hand, happens when a child has a genuine problem that may be too big or for him or her to handle, and they need some adult help. Kids who report real problems aren't looking to get anyone in trouble. They really need your help. And ironically, older students may not report genuine problems because they don't want to be considered a tattletale. And it's our job to ensure that they know the difference. Okay, our next tip 5 is know the reminding trick to remind kids. One of the most common and annoying traits of children that people think is forgetfulness. And what is the usual adult reaction when kids forget? They remind them. Interestingly enough, the more adults remind kids, the more they tend to forget. You see, they figured out that they don't need to remember if you're always going to be telling them what to do or what they need to remember. So if you find yourself in situations where you have to remind your students all the time, the trick is to remind them at a time that is inconvenient for them. So if they are constantly forgetting their books or they're constantly forgetting some material they need for class, you can say, okay, I need to keep you in just for a few minutes for recess so we can go through, so I can give you some reminders on what you need to bring to school. If you make it inconvenient for them, then most of the time they'll remember what they need to do. Of course, we all forget, so. Tip number 6, don't allow your staff to abdicate their authority. Sometimes when staff members encounter a particularly difficult student, their first reaction is to send the student to the principal's office for to be disciplined. While there certainly are times that this should be done, it should not be overdone, or your staff may soon lose its effectiveness as supervisors. And I know that to be a fact because I was a principal. And you do have certain staff members that will send a kid to the office for anything. But, if you're sending a kid to the office that just wants attention, that's a good thing for them. They get all the attention they want. They're sitting in the principal's office, and everybody gets to talk to them and look at them. And then they get to tell their side of the story. So what you need to do is just don't do those things. Don't overuse that as sending the kids to the principal. Just use that if it's if it's appropriate to do that. While they shouldn't flaunt their authority, the staff needs to know when and how to use it. When children see that teachers have the authority to sit them down at curb time or for timeout during recess or to wipe tables or pick up litter at lunchtime, they'll respect that authority more than if they send them to the principal's office. Know the purposes for misbehavior. More than 60 years ago, Dr. Rudolph Drakers, as a renowned child psychiatrist, discovered that children misbehave to achieve one of the 4 goals. You should be able to spot them. And most of the time, one of those goals is for attention. The first one, attention and service. Children often misbehave in order to get attention from others to perform some type of service. And number 2 is power. Children use this with this goal, want to prove to others that they can do as they please. And then revenge. Children who misbehave to exact revenge want to hurt someone they feel has hurt them first. And then display inadequacy. Children who misbehave in order to display inadequacy have basically given up on. Sorry about that. Have given up on themselves. They truly believe that they are not. That they're not smart, and they set out to prove it to others. And a lot of times, and we all know this, a lot of times when kids misbehave, they're compensating for an academic, I don't want to say failure, but being behind in academics or something like that. Tip number 8, and this is a tip that it's really important because this is probably the first thing that teachers ask kids, why did you do that? And I'm sure this has happened to you. You see a student do something that you know and he knows he shouldn't have done. You call him over and ask him, why did you do that? So just do yourself a favor and don't ask why they did that, because they're going to say, I don't know. Okay? We'll go on with this one a little bit. When you ask a student why he did that or why he did something, you're asking him to come up with an excuse. when we give children the opportunity to generate excuses for their behavior, we also give them the license to disown any responsibility for their own actions. Instead of asking why, ask students what they were thinking when this was going on and what did they think they were going to achieve. When you ask this question, you're helping them see the goal of their behavior and accept responsibility for the consequences. Catch kids being good, tip number 9. And this is something I used with mainly with a lot of little kids. In primary, we did what was called caught being good, and we would give the kids the little badges or stickers, when they were caught doing something good. And it's not always just the good kids. I don't want to say the good kids, but the kids that behave all the time. But any child that you catch doing something good, you can reward them with a positive reinforcement. While you're in the cafeteria or on the playground, you can spend your time trying to catch kids being bad, or you can catch them being good. And I guarantee that it's a lot easier and a lot more fun to catch them being good. You can also find that the more that you catch them being good, the more the behavior of the whole group improves. And we've seen this a lot with kids. If you praise one kid with genuine praise on how they behaved, then other kids will do that also, because all kids like to be praised. They like to be bragged on, and they like being caught doing something good. Kids love to please adults, and they love it when you notice how nicely they're behaving, how helpful they are, and how kind they are to others. Okay, tip number 10. More action, less talk. People often learn by experiencing the consequences of their own actions. How many times in our lives have we said, I could kick myself for doing that? The same is true with children. Experiencing the consequences of their own action may cause them to regret making a poor decision. When a child makes a mistake and is genuinely sorry about it, that's enough. The case should be closed. They don't need to be reminded about it by anyone else. One tip not mentioned is keep your sense of humor, and that really works with kids. Children can put a bright spot in your day if you let them, so learn to take your job seriously and yourself lightly, and enjoy the rest of your school year. And these tips came from the Principal magazine, the National Principals magazine. So thank you, and we'll see you later.